Welcome to the Why Factor, a chance to work out why we do what we do. BBC World Service podcasts are supported by advertising.
Thank you for downloading this edition of the Why Factor from the BBC, a programme that seeks to find out why we do the things we do.
I tried to prepare for it. I've seen photos online and even videos, but nothing can prepare you for actually being there and taking it in with your own eyes. The smell is indeed what hits you first, even before you realise what you're seeing. It wasn't really a stench, but just a kind of sweetish, sourish, but strange, just totally unfamiliar. First you feel a bit sick and think, can I stay in this room? And then it's more what you see.
This is Peter Hohenhaus. A few years ago, he travelled to the memorials of the 1994 Rwandan genocide, where almost 1 million people were killed in 100 days, often by their own neighbours. The description of the Murambi Memorial is hard to listen to, but Peter actively chooses to visit places like this.
The site is a former school, so there is a main building and lots of little bungalows where they actually display bodies, actual bodies they dug up from the mass graves on wooden benches, basically. They're all white because they're covered in lime and in contorted positions. Some look like as if they're silently screaming at you, and you can see like hacked in skulls, and some people still clutching a rosary. And so it is initially an absolute horror. I'm still getting quite shaken by it just talking about it. It hits you harder than you can imagine.
I'm Marianne O'Hotter, and you're listening to The Why Factor on the BBC World Service. This week, we look at what motivates people to visit sites of death and tragedy all over the world. What is dark tourism? And why are we so interested in places where terrible events have happened? Is it a noble effort to confront grim episodes of history, or just an excuse to indulge our morbid curiosity? Maybe it's both. To find out, I'm going to become a dark tourist myself. What do you put in the sat nav? AUS. This won't come up with it. Oh, it does. Auschwitz-Birkenau. Tourist attraction. Select. Okay, let's go.
Frankly, I find beach holidays utterly boring. I've tried it, but after a day I get itchy feet and I want something interesting.
Peter is perhaps the ultimate dark tourist. He's visited around 700 places, ranging from the Chernobyl nuclear disaster zone to genocide memorials in Rwanda, Cambodia, Armenia and Bosnia. But millions of us visit sites associated with death, destruction and tragedy every year. Why?
I want to go beyond. I want to tackle the darker sides of modern history and just engage with it. I want to connect. And dark tourism does that. It is the absolute antithesis of escapism.
Peter runs a website in his spare time with listings for dark tourism sites around the world. Each location has a rating on what he calls the darkometer. We're driving up the road and directly in front of me is the main gatehouse, the iconic image with the train tracks going through. And just a huge site. Massive. Crikey. The Nazi concentration and extermination camp Auschwitz-Birkenau in southern Poland, my first destination as a dark tourist, is apparently as bad as it gets.
The darkometer is just to give people an indication of how dark a site is. Is this going to be emotionally taxing? Will I have to prepare more for it? Or is it something you can just pop in? So a site like Auschwitz gets a 10 because it is extremely dark.
Right.
We arrive and my producer asks me,
How are you feeling?
I don't know. Fine? No. I feel like I'm going to a funeral. Yeah, it feels like you're going to a funeral where you know this is going to be pretty heavy. But you have to go and do it anyway. Come on! You're setting me off, you devil.
Dark tourism is essentially an academic brand that we've really imposed on sites which commemorate and memorialise disaster and atrocity. But the common denominator is the idea of people dying in unnatural circumstances.
Philip Stone heads up the Institute for Dark Tourism Research at the University of Central Lancashire in England.
Dark tourism is often seen as a contemporary kind of postmodern phenomenon, but I disagree with that. We've just got to look at the Roman gladiatorial games, where death was a kind of a mainstay for their leisure economy. The medieval executions, the morgue tours in Victorian England, kind of an entertainment, pay your ticket to get in and see the corpses. The idea that you're visiting these sites has got historical precedence.
I'm just outside the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial. There are buses and cars, a kiosk selling snacks. People milling about, eating, talking. It could be any popular tourist site. It's a very strange juxtaposition, knowing that just through those gates, I'll be in a place where 1.1 million people were murdered during the Holocaust in World War II. I'm meeting Łukasz Lipinski, who's been a guide at Auschwitz for 10 years.
Take the headphones.
So I get a little headset for my tour. Dziękuję.
Let's just go outside where we can wait for the others. So 10 years ago there were 1 million people visiting, now there are 2 million people visiting Auschwitz a year. This is, for many, the reason why they come to Poland.
It's a strange part of a tourist holiday.
It's a museum, it's a memorial site. People come here to remember.
I feel very nervous. I was saying that I feel like I'm going to a funeral.
Auschwitz is a cemetery.
Yeah. Ugh. And I've never come here before, and I visited Poland, and I said I don't want to go.
I would say that it's a must to see.
Yeah.
Learning about Auschwitz from books or from movies, it's not like being here. It's not something easy to do.
Why is it that we want to go and visit places where death and suffering have happened?
I think we go because we are inherently fascinated by other death, and we actually mediate our sense of mortality at these places. We are largely divorced from the social reality of death in society today. Death itself is largely professionalised, it's largely medicalised. So dying becomes almost the Achilles heel of modern society. So when significant other deaths happens, at least in atrocities or national disasters, it's very much quickly commodified and packaged up or memorialised. So death is the ultimate macabre fascination.
So are you sure that everyone can hear me well? Can we start? Yes? Okay, so follow me please.
So I'm in my tour group, maybe 40 people. We're going under the main gate into the camp. Iron lettering that says Arbeit macht frei, work makes you free. Now we're going to go and see some of the exhibitions that have been laid out inside what used to be the barracks for camp prisoners. Wow. So this is one of the rooms that you can't take photographs in. Oh, and this is a whole huge, vast mountain of brown tufts of human hair. Some little girls' plaits. This is the hair of victims. And there's a massive pile of shoes. It's kind of funny to think that someone at the museum has had to go around and arrange these shoes, you know, kind of ones that stand out. It's like a really big man's boot and a little kid's shoe and a lady's fancy sandal. Brings it home, I suppose. You kind of get lost in the numbers, 1 million people murdered here. But then you see a little shoe.
It's one thing to visit places of historical tragedy and suffering, but what about sites of more recent disasters? In June 2017, a fire ravaged a residential apartment block in London, burning for several days. Experts are still looking for the remains of the victims. Today, the blackened shell of Grenfell Tower rises from the West London skyline. Since the night the fire started, people with smartphones have congregated to capture the moment. They're still visiting.
The next station is Latimer Road.
Samia, Marianne, hi, really nice to meet you.
Samia Badani lives in the building next to Grenfell.
Yeah. Right, so this is like a laminate A4 sign saying, "Dear visitor, please be aware what you see is the site of our great loss. Our loss of family, friends, loved ones, neighbours. Please act with respect and hold our loss in your mind. Please no photos."
I'm less than 130 meters from this tower. I live on the second floor, so it's my everyday site. It's been 4 months, and people need to realize that every time somebody comes and try and take a picture, it just hits us again. It's a reminder. It's already very difficult, and I can remember that night. I don't think any movie director would have even conceived that in their heads, because it was something never seen before. So you can understand that this tragedy attracts people.
Do you want people to come here at all? Or would you rather they stayed away?
I don't mind them coming here. I think it's not something that belongs to us in that sense, and I think it's many people in this country and perhaps in the world relate, because we're all human beings, and if somehow it helps other communities, by all means, they're welcome to come here.
Morning, ladies. Now, what does this do? Does it pick up sound as well?
Yes.
As Samia and I are talking, a man in blue overalls steps out from a local garage.
You must have people coming up in here to take
We
photos.
certainly do.
What do you make of it?
Well, obviously, they're concerned, and there's no offence at all. It's shown on television, so why aren't they entitled to a photo of the actual scene itself? You want the newspapers and TV to have total control, that only you should see it through them? Very selfish, limited attitude, wouldn't it be?
You guys are neighbours, Samia.
I'm from Bromley House, and I think I understand.
And do you find it offensive for people?
I think there's a difference between people coming here and people taking pictures. It's good to have people coming here and showing their respect. But there's a fine line between doing that and voyeurism.
Everyone we've seen come here have been rather solemn and, sympathetic, and how did it happen? And, oh, what a shame,
I appreciate what you're saying, and I'm going to make it very clear that we're not saying to people, don't come here. And actually, I've met wonderful people. I met a guy from New York who flew all the way from New York because he had experienced 9/11, and he felt so connected to it. And he hugged us, and we had a very good discussion. He didn't take any pictures.
I think this is where the major conundrum lies. The moral commentary surrounding really a fine line between commemoration and commodification.
Philip Stone from the Institute for Dark Tourism Research again.
The issue here is death cells, and it always has done. And you look at Ground Zero, with the site of the former Twin Towers that were destroyed on September the 11th in 2001, and very much a site of grief, but also very much a site of commercial activity. And I saw a site of destruction being constructed and the tensions involved in that. And the Twin Towers before 2001 were always a tourist attraction. Arguably, it's more of a tourist attraction now because of what's happened.
Dark tourist Peter Hornhouse.
You can't just go to a disaster site as a tourist while people are still busy with the recovery works and grieving. Don't go back too early. There has to be a certain time frame before a site becomes a commemoration site and not the actual disaster still going on. because I think that is something fundamentally different when you actually go and look at the misery that is ongoing for the people. And the line is crossed where you actually offend people's feeling.
So do you get the brunt of people stopping to...
Oh yeah, all the time. And the other day I was coming out of my house and there was a guy and I said, "Are you taking a selfie?" And he said, "Oh yeah, can you help me?" He was
What
smiling.
was he doing?
Yeah, he was posing for his selfie. I mean, what is there to laugh about to be in a picture behind a graveyard? It was unbelievable.
There's this kind of almost ubiquitous way of looking at the selfie, is this kind of egotistical way of portraying yourself. To me, it's much more of a kind of an integrated way of travelling, and disseminating your experiences with immediate effect via social media. A bit like writing graffiti on the wall, I was here, but I'm here right now. And it goes back to the idea of integrated travel, the idea that we are projecting our own identity and often forgetting about the background. And forgetting about the victims, and that certainly happened at Grenfell Tower. And I think, there's a lot more research needs to be done on the idea of the selfie in terms of tourist photography, which has always raised questions at particular sites.
My fellow visitors in Birkenau, also known as Auschwitz II, have their smartphones out, taking pictures of the iconic watchtowers and railway tracks.
So this is the main platform. In 1944, over 400,000 Hungarian Jews were brought to the camp Auschwitz II. Most of them, from this place, from the platform, was sent straight to the gas chambers and killed.
I don't know, kind of looking at the railway platform where hundreds of thousands of people were shepherded off to their death. Do I need to be standing on the platform to really understand the horror of that?
It's up to you.
I don't...
It's really up to you. But by coming here, you show that you want to. It's something that is related to every person, in a way. Yeah.
So in your years as a tour guide, what have your most memorable experiences with visitors been?
Because remember many people that cried, shocked because of the things that they have seen. Some people, they were not always prepared. It was too much. People not always are able to complete the tour. Sometimes they quit. So it happens many times.
Do you like giving tours?
Yeah, I will say I like to do tours, but maybe it's not a proper word.
Yeah.
I think it's something that I should do. Sometimes very hard. It's hard to come here and do a tour, but in 15, 20 years, there will be no more survivors. We should know that. So people like guides, educators at Auschwitz, they will still be able to tell the story of those people in the authentic place. Now and for the future.
Why do you think there is this kind of feeling of moral panic about dark tourism?
If the media doing the homework, then they usually come off understanding that it is more an educational kind of operation, and it's not for getting a kick out of gore and horror, but it's much more about commemoration and respect and confronting and connecting with reality.
The description of that Rwandan genocide memorial, of bodies laid out, of people clutching rosaries, you can see the machete wounds in their heads. Do you think that's going too far? When does it cross over from memorialisation to grotesque?
Yeah. If you had such a display in Europe or in America, it would be way beyond that line. We have to remember Rwanda is different, and this is aimed primarily at its own domestic market. Very, very few foreign visitors see that. And it is extreme for political reasons, basically. They want to give irrefutable evidence that the genocide actually happened. And that's in a rural, largely illiterate society. And it is also not as gory as it may have sounded earlier. may sound odd now, but once you got over the initial shock, then you sort of connect with the people, with the bodies in a way.
Samia, do you get any comfort from people coming here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we feel supported. People come here and hug us, and it's good to see, and it's a good feeling when you feel that community cohesion with people who are not even from your area. So it's something beautiful that's born out of the tragedy.
We don't remember the dead, we remember ourselves. That's why we have memorials. The glorious dead there's nothing glorious about being dead, and the dead mediate our own mortality, our own follies, our own exploits, and in that sense dark tourism guide us. The dead are authors to our own lives. I don't think you have to be at a particular site to remember, but you do need to remember.
I cry when I say hello and goodbye to my mother. Why did I not bring hankies to Auschwitz? What an idiot. So I've come out now, and I do feel pretty wrung out and exhausted, and it's pretty overwhelming. But also it's a visitor experience where there's a tour guide and a headset and a particular way of walking through the exhibitions, and I totally understand that they have to do that because they have 2 million visitors a year. I've come to Auschwitz because it's an easy visitor experience, and I've had my fill of genocide. That's bad. So I feel guilty not about coming to Auschwitz. I think I feel guilty about all the other stuff that I choose to ignore. That's my overwhelming feeling, guilt for all the episodes of horrific history that I don't bother to think about. I don't know if that was the aim of the day. No, I'm going to go and have an ice cream in the restaurant. I'm Marianne O'Hotter, and you've been listening to The Y Factor. The producer was Rose de la Rabiti. You can listen again or share this programme via the website and discover other Y Factors on subjects like serial killers and male violence. We'd love to hear your ideas for future topics. Email us, yfactor@bbc.com.
When you enter the site, when you walk through the gates with the sign Arbeit macht frei, things change. And you're not the same person after visiting Auschwitz anymore, for sure.
Thanks for listening to The Y Factor. If you'd like to listen to more from the BBC, head to our website. You can download a wide range of programmes, including Assignment, which explores stories at the heart of global events. Go to www.bbc.com.